December 8, 2022 to order. As is customary, we'll open with the Pledge of Allegiance. I'll ask Vice Chairman Byerly if he'll lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance.
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you, Mr. Byerly. This time I'm going to ask Ms. Firestone to call the roll, but prior to that, we have a request for participation for remote participants. The first one, Ms. Patricia O'Bannon from Henrico County has requested remote participation for a personal matter regarding transportation. Ms. Melissa Thornton has requested remote participation for a personal matter dealing with an illness. Mr. Greg Baca has requested remote participation. Mr. Baca, since this was brought into us, we're going to need you to declare a matter with some general specificity as to the reason for the request for remote participation. Are you available, Mr. Baca?
Yes, sir. Just for transportation this morning. Yes, sir.
Very well. With that, I will now entertain a motion to confirm my decision to approve the member's request as it is in conformance with the PlanRVA CVTA policies, remote participation of members, and we can do this by voice vote. Is there a motion? We have a motion. Is there a second? We have a motion and a second. Any discussion? All those in favor, please indicate by saying aye. Aye. Any opposed? Motion carries. For the record, Ms. Patricia O'Bannon, Ms. Melissa Moore, and Mr. Greg Baca will all participate remotely as been approved. Did I say Melissa Thornton?
I thought you said more, but
I apologize, Ms. Melissa Thornton. I thought I said Thornton. Greg Baca and Patricia O'Bannon. We'll now do a roll call of attendees. Ms. Firestone.
Town of Ashland, Dr. McGraw.
Here.
Abbott. Mr. Chambers.
he'll be coming late. He's stuck in traffic.
Okay. City County, Mr. Atkins.
Present.
Chesterfield County, Mr. Winslow. Mr. Holland.
Here.
Mr. Carroll.
Here.
Miss Carroll.
Mr. Miller's replacing Miss Carroll. Mark Miller.
Good morning. I'll make a note of it. Thank you.
Dr. Mark Miller.
But I don't have to read.
And Mr. Engel.
Here.
Thank you. Miss Fry. Davy.
Here.
Richland County, Mr. Spoonhour.
Here.
Hanover County, Chair Davis.
Present.
Mr. Peterson.
Here.
Richard. Mr. Whitaker.
Here.
Mr. Waddell. Henrico County, Reverend Nelson.
He is. He's out in the hall.
Okay. Miss O'Bannon.
Here.
Thank you. Mr. Thornton.
Here.
Miss Thornton.
Yeah.
Mr. Baca.
Here. Good morning. Here.
Good morning. Yeah. Newcastle County, Miss Page. Mr. Lockwood.
Here.
Miss Pearson. Powhatan County, Vice Chair Byerly.
Here.
Mr. McClung. Mr. Hall.
Here.
Steve Richmond, Dr. Newville.
Here.
Mr. Addison. Miss Lambert. Miss Lynch. Miss Robertson. Mr. Poole. Mr. Giovia. Okay, that concludes the roll call for attendance, and we do have a quorum.
Let the record reflect, we do have a quorum. This time, I'd like to ask the board to to recognize, and we'll have a moment of silence for the passing of Congressman Donald McEachin. Many of y'all know Congressman McEachin, the work that he's done for the state and certainly in the halls of Congress. I was saddened to receive confirmation last week, late in the evening, that Don had passed away. We'd worked on a number of issues, and I know a number of folks in here have worked on issues with Don, whether it was in the Senate or again in Congress. And so on behalf of PlanRVA, we certainly send our condolences to his family, to his team and his staff. And I'd ask that we have a moment of silence for Congressman Donald McEachin. Thank you very much. We'd also like to welcome Mr. Mark Miller. I think I saw Mr. Miller. Yeah, thank you. It's great to meet you, sir. Are you quite sure what you signed up for? So congratulations on your election. The people there in Chesterfield have spoken. I've heard some great things about you, and we look forward to working with you on this team as well as other regional matters. So welcome. At this time, we're going to move into item number 2. There is one amendment to the agenda. I'm going to move that we amend item 3B2. And the amendment is going to focus around, and I'll make the motion, asking the commission to consider allowing the executive committee to review, approve, and submit, should all of those things be acceptable to the full commission, the audit that was submitted to us. Our audit got to us a little bit later, and we want to get it in before the end of the year, but we certainly want to make sure that the full commission has the ability to look at it and submit any comments. But we don't, at this time, see any practical reason that, should there be no issues, any comments, any concerns, that it needs to be delayed past submission at the end of the year. So with that, I move to amend the agenda on item 3B2 to allow for discussion and possible motion by the full commission to authorize executive committee to review, approve, and submit the audit, should there be no matters before the commission by the end of the year. Is there a second? Second. We have a motion and a second. Is there any discussion? All those in favor, please indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries and the agenda is so amended. The next item on the agenda is public comments. Is there anyone here who wishes to address the commission on any matter before the commission's authority? Anyone from the public? Anyone online? Very well, we'll close public comment time. Next item on the agenda 2B is November 10, 2022, full commission meeting minutes. Have all commission members had an opportunity to review the minutes? Are there any additions, changes? Hearing no comments, is there a motion to approve?
So moved, Mr. Chair.
Dr. Newbill, is there a second?
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Is there any discussion? All those in favor, please indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. Next item on the agenda is executive committee and chairman's report. I will get into, I want to turn it over to Ms. Heater. I'm going to get into executive committee, some of the things we talked about as it relates to the audit in the amended portion, and I'll just turn it over to you, Ms. Heater.
I think like you.
Probably just the, well, yeah, I think, so we talked a little bit about security. I think we need to, do you want to go, you have your PowerPoint back up? I'd like for the full commission to see that
Sure.
briefly. We had talked a little bit about, we're moving into a new building and some things that we're looking at there. We're also looking at some updates as it deals with cybersecurity, some of the matters that we deal with. I know some of y'all are dealing with at your locality. So Ms. Heater's put some things together. I think it'd be important for the full commission to have this introduction by way of oral presentation as well as the PowerPoint. And this is going to deal with some of our office security, some of our meetings, administrative and logistical matters, and then and some of our cybersecurity matters. Nothing for anybody to vote on, but we do want folks to be aware of some of the things that we're going to probably have to take some action on here in the next couple of months. So, got it. Thank you, Ms. Eda.
Sure. Thank you. Okay, well, thank you. I was able to brief the executive committee this morning about some updates on security. So I'll just kind of try to hit the highlights here. By way of background, our new office space is giving us a chance to be able to continue on the path that we have to focus on safety and security at PlanRVA. As you know, the new space is under a different management structure. It's in a different location. And so there are just lots of different opportunities that we have to be able to think about new protocols and new measures. So in preparing for that, we did work with the Richmond's Department of Emergency Management and the police department's liaison to emergency management to be able to walk the space and think about some of the security measures that we would put in as part of the build out, but then from a protocol and procedure perspective. We also regularly communicate with Versa, our insurance carrier, to be able to make sure that we are up to date on the various potential risks that exist for the agency. And that runs the gamut from everything from physical security, accident prevention, and cyber. And then finally, with the new space, we've been able to partner with a new vendor, Johnson Controls. They're the Richmond Alarm System company that we hired to put in the security equipment for our space. And so I'll talk a little bit about that as well. So just a little bit of background that I gave to the executive committee. When I think about security, I think about it kind of in three dimensions. There's access control, which certainly has been a big pivot for us with regard to the new space, continuing training and education for our staff, and certainly for members of the board that want to get more involved in that process. And then as we think about any kind of incident management or response, we want to make sure that we're always adapting our policies and procedures to make sure that we're ready for anything that might be coming down the line. So from an access perspective, I did want to be able to brief everyone on what's new and changing with regard to our office space access. So moving to the new building, the current at 424 Hull Street, there is a different security system of measures that are in place there. So members of the public are able to access the lobby from 7 a.m. to 10 p.m. without any kind of security mechanism. You can walk right into the building and have open access into the lobby area and actually the commercial space on the first floor. After 10 p.m. and before 7 a.m., that front door building or any of the side doors are all accessed by swiping your fob. In addition to that, the stairwells and elevator are actually fob accessible only 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. And so that means that if you do not have a fob or any member of the public were to come to the space, they would need to be escorted from the lobby up to our space on the third floor. We do plan to issue fobs to also our frequent flyers, members of the board that are regularly in our space that serve on the executive committee, the TPO's executive committee, and the CVTA finance committee to be able to make that access a little bit more user friendly to those of you that might be in and out of our office space on a more regular basis. During times that we have public meetings hosted, so like this, when we're in our new space and hosting this meeting, we will actually coordinate with the property manager to unlock the access control for the elevator so that any member of the public, whether it be a commissioner or a person who wants to attend to observe, would be able to push number 3 on the elevator and get up to our space without an escort. So we've been able to negotiate that with them as part of the lease arrangements. I mentioned the fobs. We do have, as part of our lease agreement, a total of 71 fobs available to us to issue. Those fobs have a pretty cool integration with 3 different systems. So one single device is able to allow those that have been granted access in and out of the parking garage, building access, and suite access. Each of those are managed by a different vendor. So we're coordinating internally to make sure that each fob is activated to the right person for the right level of access. But that certainly is something that we're working through. in the briefing with the executive committee this morning, I think that there was consensus that the groups that will receive that fob will be our executive committee members for the commission and the TPO, and the finance committee members for the CVTA. Each of those fobs that are issued will have access in and out of the parking garage. We'll also be able to have access in and out of the building, and then suite access as well for the executive committee members of the commission. On the parking note, I did want to be able to mention to you, we do have the ability to register license plates. So if there's a member who has a fob or doesn't have a fob, we could still submit your license plate that would enable you to drive into the parking garage without having to really interact with the podium kiosk. And then that would bill your parking fees to the agency. So we'll be sending out either later this month or the beginning of the year information for commissioners who would like to be able to have the opportunity to have that license plate access. If there's a vehicle that you regularly drive to commission meetings, that might be a really efficient way for you to be able to get in and out as quickly as possible. If that's not the best option for you, or you have different transportation that you use for different days, we also would be able to just validate your parking ticket. So you can always just grab a ticket when you pull in, bring that up to the office, and we'll be able to affix a sticker to the ticket for you to get out at no charge. So hopefully any one of those options will make this as seamless as possible. I'll pause there. Are there any questions on that? I did want to mention, and I think I failed to mention this in the executive committee meeting, we did work with Johnson Controls to install a camera in the lobby area of our office space. So that'll be a live camera feed to recording to the cloud. I can't recall off the top of my head, but we have a certain number of days that the feed will maintain the recordings. But that just really is a preventative, rather a measure for us that if anything were to happen in the space, on recommendation from RPD, that way we have the video footage to be able to record that. So for that purpose, and then also just to be able to maintain safety of the entire suite, the front entrance of the office suite will be the primary entrance and exit for the office space. We do have two perimeter exits, one exiting the large boardroom. That will be an exit only door. And so if someone needed to quickly step out into the hallway, for example, to use the restroom or take a phone call, the member would need to come back in through the front door. And that's just to really be able to preserve that flow and record of access, if you will. And so that's a little bit different than what you're accustomed to now in the Stony Point space. But I think in talking with many folks about this already, it's probably not dissimilar from what you've encountered in your local governments and kind of changing those types of things. So as I said, we have access that's controlled through a single door, the front entry. We have two side doors that are exit only. They are punch code lock activated. So it is not as though they do not open from the outside, but they're restricted with punch codes. And that'll be something that staff will have access to, but we won't be issuing the codes to those two doors widely. I'll also mention that we have a punch code access within the suite that separates the sort of front of house public area to the back of house. And really that's a mechanism that we put into place to protect against a situation where we might be holding an after hours event where fewer staff might be on hand. And so we can actually close off the working area of our space where staff belongings or computers and equipment would be if we're hosting a public event in the community room. If you haven't been to the space yet, it might be hard to visualize, but it's a long rectangle. And so the north half of the space is our kind of open community public space, and the south half of the space is the staff working space. You will see it when you get to come. So again, we've made the arrangements with the property manager on elevator access during public meetings, and the intention is to continue the practice, and we've been modeling the expectations as far as the budget implications for validating parking for our public meetings that we host for PlanRVA, CVTA, the Emergency Management Alliance, and the TPO. And so we're going to be working through, and Mr. Gregory and I were talking as part of the FOB issuance process. We'll be working to put together just a brief acknowledgement of receipt and kind of, so that you have record of what that FOB is actually supposed to do for you, for those of you that will be receiving that. Finally, we just wanted to kind of briefly share with you our efforts to keep our staff up to date on emerging and continuing threats. And we think about that in three buckets: physical security, employee safety, and cybersecurity. So all three of those are areas that we focus on. We have a safety team. Ken Lance that's here today as our safety officer. He helps to coordinate some of that work. We have been able to take advantage of some grant opportunities available from Versa for purchase of safety equipment. So as an example, we do have an AED machine that will be mounted in the new space. Our staff are trained to use that in the event of a heart event on staff. We've had training for Stop the Bleed, fire extinguisher training, and probably some others that I'm leaving out, but we do try to bring in partners from BDH or Red Cross or other in the know groups. And I know Mr. Davis talked about the SHIELD training with the Sheriff's Department, so we'll be looking into that. And then we follow a lot of the newsletter information that's put out by the Fusion Center. That's mostly around active threats and cyber, but there's all kinds of rich information there. I was telling the executive committee, if you haven't signed up for those and you want to, they're kind of sobering content, but always really beneficial as far as kind of the latest and greatest of what the bad guys are thinking up for the rest of us. Finally, when we think about emergency incident management and response, really just making sure that continuity of operations planning is a continuous process for us. As I mentioned, the employee safety team has been a great resource to me to make recommendations. It's a team that when we have an idea, we'll kick it around and figure out what the best way to go forward is. And those are staff members that have volunteered or have graciously accepted my invitation to serve on that team, just kind of help think about the different dimensions of safety in our office. And we certainly have benefited from the partnership that we have with Versa, as well as our local member jurisdictions, in helping us think about how to bring helpful information to our staff. So it was a pretty quick overview, but.
It was. Thank you, ma'am. So we're looking at a number of different things I just brought up briefly. Some of y'all in your localities may have looked at your email systems. We all get a lot of emails externally every day. And so we've bolstered some of our security measures in our locality here in Hanover. And we just want to be mindful of some of the threats that are taking place, particularly dealing with some of the federal issues that we're dealing with, money and so on and so forth. I was mentioning, I heard a brief by Senator Warner the other day, and the concern with some apps being used on government devices. The one that he spoke on was TikTok. And so I think there's going to be some movement from the federal government as it relates to apps and what's on computers and as they deal with federal funds and the way they control that. So we're just trying to stay up and abreast on all of that as it relates to building security. We've talked to some of the local law enforcement folks. They do like to know when regional bodies meet for reasons that, are probably obvious to us, but they may not be obvious to other folks. When you have a large regional body meet, they just want to make sure that they know about it, and should anything happen. And I used the example, 5 people get stuck in an elevator. You don't want to shut down 2 county governments because you've got 2 board members and a council member stuck in an elevator. But obviously there are other things that we're concerned about. So we're being proactive on that. So I appreciate Ms. Heater talking about that. I think we'll probably go into, we've got the new office update. We're going to talk a little bit about the audit report, then I'm going to turn it over to Mr. Holland. So everybody received.
Just one more,
Sure.
if that's okay.
Sure.
Thank you.
We're not going to amend the agenda. Ms. Heater just threw something at me on the fly.
Thank you. I did just want to announce that our office space construction is complete. Just really happy to share that news with you. The contractors and subs delivered their end of the contract on time. And so we're really excited about that. Our team started installing the modular furniture the week of the 29th. So the modular furniture has been delivered and is in. I think that there were two pieces that needed to be fixed from just some kind of shipping mistake, but and we are awaiting, hopefully this week, if not early next week, the final certificate of occupancy. The interior to our office space has all been completed and has been signed off on through the inspections. It is the exterior of our suite, the common corridor hallway, that is still awaiting the final reviews. And so once that has been completed, I understand that the team has inspections scheduled for tomorrow. So if all goes well, we would be cleared for occupancy starting on Monday. If for some reason those inspections, final inspections have to get pushed, then it would just get pushed accordingly. But we're definitely in the home stretch, and it's just been really exciting. Our movers delivered our belongings from the second floor up to the third floor last week. So we have furniture and boxes in everybody's offices that as soon as we can give them the green light, they'll be coming in to unpack. I think it's possible that some of the workstations even got some computer monitors mounted. But until we get that green light from the city, we don't have staff in there, obviously taking up their workspace, but we're just really excited about that. So we'll have, a couple of weeks this month to be able to let folks get used to the space, and then really look forward to being in full swing by the beginning of the calendar year. So.
Thank you, ma'am. So I'm going to turn it over to Mr. Holland, Mr. Van Dornick. Before I do, by way of introduction for the audit report. So we just received the audit, and everybody should have that via email. And you'll notice it says draft on there, and just for the purposes of clarity, that doesn't mean it's a draft audit. It means that it has not been approved yet. It has been finalized, but we have to put draft on there. One of the things that we're going to talk about, and I spoke with Mr. Holland about it, we'd like to ask the full commission for the authority for the executive committee to review and authorize, approve and submit to the clearinghouse with the full commission's authorization to allow the executive committee to do that, because we really see no practical reason that this should be. We got it a little bit later, which is not necessarily a time crunch issue. We wanted to have it in November. We got it in December, but we don't see any practical reason that we can't get this in by December 31st. So what we'd like to do after the presentation is ask the full commission, and I'll do this by way of a motion to authorize the executive committee to approve and submit as long as there are no findings or concerns reported by the auditor or comments by the full commission. What that will mean is the executive committee will have to have a special advertised meeting and convene that before the end of the year to get that submitted. But with that, and that has been endorsed by Mr. Holland, but I'm going to turn it over to Mr. Holland and Mr. Van Dornick. Mr. Holland, appreciate all your work on this, and turn it over to you, sir.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. As you noted, due to unanticipated delays, we did receive it this month versus last month. Now, but I'm pleased to say, however, that our report has come back with an unmodified or clean opinion. I'm very pleased to note that. And I'm gonna just highlight that our assets net position increased to $100,157, bringing our fund balance total to $1,427,244. As you all know, our target has been $1 million, well above our target. So we're moving in the right direction, and we're doing well financially. Thank God we are a going concern, which I think it should be always noted as well. And so with that, our yield, and I think we may have on Zoom, do we have on Zoom? We may have on Zoom as well, our auditor, Mark Rose, the principal, if needed for questions or comments. But I'm gonna yield to Mr. Van Dorn to share some information as he can for your benefit at this point.
Thank you. As Mr. Holland indicated, the audit was issued with the auditor's opinion, which was unmodified, which means it was clean. There were no material or substantial issues with the information therein. If you look at your table of contents, you'll see a compliance section that includes a schedule of expenditures and federal awards, as well as, two reports, independent auditors report. You don't actually have to go there. I'm just kind of highlighting it. We are subject to the single audit, which is a federal requirement, given the level of federal funding we receive. And they have special audit requirements where they have to look through not just the financial element of it, but compliance with legal issues, but also the program requirements. And Mr. Rhodes also issued reports under the single audit. And both of those reports had no findings as well. So no question cost, no findings regarding either the financial information or compliance information, use of funds. So those are two important things to note as well. And as Mr. Holland noted, the fund balance continues to increase both in the government-wide, which is more your full accrual, more your corporate business type statements. The ones that includes your pensions, leasehold improvements, those types of things. And then also in the governmental funds, more your traditional government statements, there were $100,000 surpluses, which added to the fund balances, the net position in the fund balance. The importance of that is that it wasn't always the case for this organization, but over the last few years, you have achieved excesses, and that has given you a good sound margin in your fund balance. Not every organization can say that. Not every organization can turn it around. So congratulations in sustaining some of those improvements. The other element with that is it's very important to maintain that type of excess so that when times aren't always as good, when you have downturns, you may not always have the funds, but you want to continue what you do. So you can use those funds during those times. And the other piece is as you have opportunities to do things, a new program comes available, a new grant comes available. They rarely fully fund any activity. So you need to have funds to either match a grant or just invest into that program. Maintaining those surpluses gives you those funds. It gives you that means to actually invest in new areas of program or to further existing areas of program. The environmental and the emergency management programs are two key examples of that. They're not fully funded by the grants they receive, but they're important programs. And by managing proactively and being able to invest in those areas with the surplus, with the fund balance, the organization is able to continue those areas.
Thank you, Mr. Van Dorn. With that, Mr. Chairman, are there any comments from our auditor? Would you like to make a statement? Mr. Mark Rose, principal with Mark Van Camp.
Mark, good morning. And would you like to make any comments, sir?
No, I really don't have anything else to add to what Dan had said. So if there are any questions about the audit or if it's going to go to the executive committee and follow-up questions, then that'll be fine.
Thank you, Mr.
Thank
Rhodes.
you, sir.
Anything further? With that, I move that that PlanRVA Full Commission authorize the executive committee to review and approve the FY 2022 financial audit for purposes of submission to the Virginia Auditor of Public Accounts and the Federal Clearinghouse by December 31st, 2022, pending no findings or concerns reported by the auditor or comments by commissioners. Is there a second?
Second, Mr. Chairman.
We have a motion and a second. Is there any discussion? All those in favor, please indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed?
No.
Very well. Let the record reflect that motion passed. And I'm going to ask Ms. Heater to make two comments on that now that we've gotten through those matters, but just 2 points that the executive director pointed out earlier at the executive committee. I think it's important for the full commission to note.
Sure. For those of you that have your copy in front of you, if you want to turn to page 36, I'll be talking about the content starting there. These are the notes to the financial statements. So they're a calculation that's done as part of the review of the final financial statements. The calculation of the indirect costs and the fringe costs are crucial to the agency because these are the figures that we use calculating these two rates for fiscal 2022, but will become the effective rates that we submit for approval to apply to our reimbursements that are submitted through our grant program. So essentially, indirect costs are those expenses that the agency incurs that are eligible, but for various reasons it might not make sense to try to distribute them directly to a federal grant program. So we apply them indirectly. An example of that would be our rent. So instead of allocating each square footage that a staff member might use associated with the time that they spend on a grant, we apply it through this formula basis. And so I just wanted to be able to call your attention to these two sections of the audit because it's a, I think, I was going to say exciting thing. So I guess I'm excited about it. The fiscal 2021 audit reported the indirect rate of 53.43%. And you can see there on page 36 of our 2022 audit, that indirect cost rate is reduced to 49.38%. So it's about just over 4%. I view this as sort of a bit of a measure of efficiency, if you will. So as Mr. Van Dornick reminded me, that the base, that bottom number, that's the denominator is increasing. So we're bringing additional funds into the agency, but our numerator, that top number, is also shifting. And so that's really where we're seeing the efficiency. So the additional revenue resources that we're bringing in, we are using more effectively in essence. So we're, in other words, the staff time, the positions that you authorized that were created, we're actually billing those through our grant programs, which is creating that increased level of efficiency, if you will. So very pleased to see that. And then if you continue on to page 37, you'll see there the calculation of the fringe benefits. Similarly, I think in particular, the last couple of years have been uncertain times as far as understanding what leave utilization would look like. And so the last couple of years with COVID, travel restrictions, perhaps the lack of ability or the lack of desire for staff members to really take time have been a variable that we've been contending with. And even in our fringe rate and rising health insurance costs, we've been able to see a modest reduction there as well. The 2021 audit reported 51.06% for fringe, and we are reporting here at 50.93. So not quite as big of a reduction, but still it's great to see that fringe rate kind of climbing down. I'll just note, when I came here 7 years ago, I felt like our indirect rate really needed to be around 45%, and we have continued. For those of you that have been around for a while, there was a time when I believe our indirect rate was somewhere in north of 100%. I think it was only a couple of years ago, we were in the 70s. The finance committee made that change to incorporate leave into the fringe rate as opposed to the indirect rate. So we've been making, I think, some really great policy decisions, but also just operations and management decisions that have really continued to see those rates get into a place that I think we should all be proud of. So just wanted to point that out.
Thank you, Ms. Heater. On behalf of the entire commission, I want to thank Mr. Howland, Mr. Van Dornick. Appreciate that. A lot of hard work's gone in over the years, and this 51-page audit this year, I think, shows the fruits of that labor. So thank you, Mr. Howland, Mr. Van Dornick.
Thank the finance committee.
Yeah, there's no question.
Outstanding members serving you. Thank you.
So with that, if there's nothing further, we'll move into item C here, public outreach and engagement. Mr. Davey and Mr. Lanier Jackson. Mr. Davey, thank you, sir.
Good morning, Mr. Chairman. Yeah, obviously, there's some things that are going on that are exciting. The committee's been meeting a couple of times, but most of the work's really being done by staff, and then the bench strength of the consultants that Martha's brought on board. So a couple of quick updates. We met twice in November to sort of get a sneak preview of some of the tweaks to the brand that the Hodges group is sort of working on. And it's sort of like a refinement and trying to sort of sharpen the message that PlanRVA, sort of has out in the community. And a lot of that stuff is going to sort of get rolled out early next year. And so a lot of that stuff is sort of in the works right now, and the sneak preview that we've got about it, I'm pretty excited about it, and I think it makes a lot of sense. And then the second major thing is the excitement about the office is sort of cool. The committee is going to actually host you all on January 12th and sort of get a sneak peek of the office space and stuff like that. And see if we can sort of show off not only the office space, but show off that development. It's actually a pretty cool development too. And so, have the opportunity both to sort of roll out some of the brand work as we do a sneak preview of the office on January 12th. Martha, anything else?
Yeah, I just wanted to add, I think one of the things that the committee and we have been talking about a lot is our first line of effort with rolling out our brand is our communication with our member jurisdiction. So I think the committee spends quite a bit of time in every meeting talking about who's our audience, who are we trying to reach, what are we trying to communicate. And so I know that Mr. Davis and I have plans, and we'll be reaching out to probably members of the executive committee, I'm thinking, to help us figure out what the appropriate venue would be to come and visit either your governing board and make a presentation at the board meeting, or if you have a committee, or, I think we want to make sure that we are present in the communities and making those presentations. I don't know if you have more you want to say on that.
I think it's just a continuation of what we had spoken on earlier. Now we're kind of getting into the execution phase where we're gonna do a road show and try to hit all of the localities and give an update. We see that from many regional organizations. And Chairman Carroll came to Hanover County just the other day. I know you've kind of been on a road trip with CVTA, and it was a great presentation. It's actually the first time in my tenure that I've had anybody from a governing body come in, give a presentation, and then get an ovation, and they clapped for him, which kind of bothered me a little bit, to be honest with you. But I appreciate that, and he came with his executive director. So we appreciate that, Mr. Parsons, and I'll be in there. But it was a great presentation, and they had a video. I think I texted Martha after the meeting. I said, I want a video, right? So it did help. We had talked about that. Carol kind of jumped the gun and got in front of us there with CVTA, which doesn't surprise me. That's how he is. But it was a really great presentation, and I think it helped our board members. That's the only one that I've seen where I've participated, helped our board members really understand some of the inner dynamics and some of the complexities of CVTA and some of the benefits to the region that come through these regional partnerships. So our plan is to do the same and talk about PlanRVA. So we're going to be in the execution phase as soon as the ball drops on New Year's Eve. Martha and I are going to start heading out in January and start getting on that road show. So, but we want to coordinate with each locality and make sure it works, and with the managers and administrators to make sure it works for their boards and their councils and things of that nature. So thank you, Ms. Heater.
Yeah, and then just wanted to give a couple of updates starting also in the new year. Janice and I have been brainstorming on some new formatting for the agenda packet. So the goal there is to be able to make the packets as user-friendly as possible for you, but also as kind of publicly accessible as for anybody that's trying to get a feel for what this agency does and how they can connect into observing what's going on. PlanRVA is essentially the hub for these other regional bodies, the TPO, the CVTA, the Emergency Management Alliance. So we want to get a little bit more, I think, assertive in communicating our role in supporting these organizations. So we're working through what that could look like visually and how we could make sure that, of course, the regional organizations that are doing the work are the top line, but how do we better convey that PlanRVA is in the behind the scenes, kind of helping make the wheels turn. And to that end, we've also been working on redesigning our website's front homepage. I think a bigger, deeper conversation about the architecture overall of our website is necessary and forthcoming. But as an interim phase, we definitely have acknowledged that our new website, that's now about 6 years old, has become a mammoth again. And so we want to make sure that we're giving people kind of easy access. So we're starting with that front page, and Mark Bittner's been working with the team and Rashonda to redesign that to hopefully be a little bit more clear about the role that PlanRVA plays. So those are just a couple of things that I think you'll start to see rolling out with the support of the Public Outreach Committee in the new year.
Thank you, ma'am. So we've got brand implementation. Do we want to hit the first look event January 12th?
Yeah, Sid's been working on the details of this with Rashonda, but I believe that later today, your inboxes will see an invitation. So we'll be sending out an invitation for the first look event. This is in lieu of, but during the same time slot as the regular business meeting that would typically be held in January. So we are inviting our commissioners, our TPO members, CVTA members, Emergency Management Alliance members, all of those folks that we host for our meetings, as well as our local government administrators, the technical committees, all of those people. It's really intended to be able to familiarize each of you with the space so that you understand how to navigate, so that when we hit the ground running at the end of the month or in February, everyone's been there and feels comfortable with it. As Mr. Davey mentioned, we're working on some programming to be able to share kind of the context of the neighborhood and the development. And so it will be not a business meeting, but definitely something that we look forward to seeing all of you so that you can get a sense of the space. I think the doors will open at 8 o'clock along the lines of our executive committee members meetings in lieu of that business meeting, and then the program will start promptly at 9. So please do plan to attend. We'll be sending that RSVP invitation out, but also we'll be sending calendar invites to you. And I think it's going to come today, right? Yeah. So the invitation will come out today with all the details.
Thank you, ma'am. Anything further from Mr. Davey?
No, Mr. Chairman.
Okay, very well.
Sorry, I just remembered something. Do you want to talk about that now or no? Okay, sorry, apologies. You should have gotten a communication last week. We are doing a food drive this month. So if anyone, while you're out and about, would like to drop off any of the eligible donations to Feed More, we'd love to be able to accept those and present them to Feed More at the start of the new year on behalf of the commission and our public bodies. So if you do have anything, if you happen to see that email and you brought something today, I've got some boxes in my car that we can load up, but also wanted to make sure that if you had an occasion to drop by, we'd love to be able to collect any of those donations and take them to Feed More next month.
And if you don't have time to drop them off, if you send me an email or a text and you have them at your place of business, your boardrooms or administration offices, city hall, whatever, council chambers, I will come by personally and pick those up. But we wanted to do that for PlanRVA. We just gotten some word, and of course the need has increased specifically from June through the end of this year. They anticipate, and Feed More does a great job. So I talked to Martha about that. So if you'd like to drop it off, we'd love to see you there. I say we, I'm not at the office, but Martha is. And if not, if transportation's an issue, call me and I'll come by and personally pick it up from any of the 9 localities. We'd be happy to do that. And then we'll present it from PlanRVA to Feed More. And certainly anybody be welcome to go down there when we get a date for that as well. So thank you, Martha. Anything further? I think, Mr. Dave, I've asked you 3 times. You still have nothing. Nothing came up in the last 45 seconds. Thank you, sir. We appreciate it. Yes, sir. Dr. McGraw.
In years past, Feedmer's told me they prefer straight up donations because they're more efficient with purchasing food than we are. I'm happy to make a donation. I'm also happy to donate food, but is it okay to donate just straight?
Yeah.
Okay.
If you got the email, and we'll make sure that it comes out again, there are instructions if you want to do a direct donation of financial, because as you are right, that helps them really be able to direct and fill gaps. So either one, I think, we just want to make sure that awareness of the need.
Right. Okay.
Thank you. Great point.
Thanks.
Thank you, Dr. McGraw. Appreciate that. Anything further? With that, we'll move into item D, Executive Director's Report. Ms. Eder.
I don't have anything other to add. The intergovernmental and environmental reviews are there for your information.
Okay. Very well. We'll move into item number 4, special program PlanRVA's data analysis and capabilities.
Thank you. So last month in November, when we were at the Community Foundation, we heard from Brian Anderson and Sherry Armstrong about this notion of establishing a regional framework that's dedicated to, I'll say, collective action and alignment toward economic opportunity and mobility. One of the things that was covered at the conclusion of that presentation was really this idea that PlanRVA could be the data partner for this initiative. And so thinking back even to the 2019 strategic planning process, we talked a lot about PlanRVA's potential capacity and our potential to really be able to step into the space of being that regional resource in the region. And so when the board took action to approve our budget last year, you authorized, or rather 2 years ago, you authorized the creation of this principal data manager position. We're really fortunate to have been able to recruit Serene Adhikari from VCU. He's been a leader in the region as far as data analysis and has a ton of contacts across the region, but has a real passion for regional planning. And we were really grateful to be able to bring him onto our team. So I asked him to come today and to present to you a little bit of background about what he's been up to in the last few months. He started with us in May of 2022. So it's only been about 7 months, but it's been just really great to be able to get him moving on some things and to be able to tell a little bit, maybe some foreshadowing of where we plan to go with data. Wanted to be able to introduce him, put a face to the name as well, so that particularly for localities that are thinking about data, if we can be a resource to you, this would be a great person to be in contact with. And so I will hand it over to you, Serene, if that's okay. And thank you.
Thank you, Martha. Good morning, everyone. And Mr. Chairman and the member of the PlanRVA Commission, thank you, and my colleagues from PlanRVA. Thank you so much for this opportunity to put a face to an email address that you all might have seen here and there. And a brief introduction about myself. I would probably not take more than 15 minutes for this presentation. Maybe 5 minutes we can do Q&A. My name is Serene Adhikari. I'm the new principal data manager at PlanRVA. I joined it in May of this year. And ever since then, it has been an exciting trip for me. I was working with the Center for Urban and Regional Analysis at VCU prior to here. And I was working in the capacity of economist, regional economist there. I have a PhD in urban and public affairs from the University of Louisville, Kentucky, and an MSc in urban planning. And I had been in my previous life a practicing architect, not anymore. My focus areas are from my education and also in practice is regional economic development, affordable housing, program evaluation, policy evaluation, and understanding how regional governance works in certain situations. As soon as I joined PlanRVA in May, I tried and started to understand what kind of work they do. I mean, I knew what kind of work they do from some time ago because we had worked together when I was in VCU at different capacities. But then when I came across our colleagues and started talking with them, matter of fact, doing interviews with them about the things they do, the challenges they have, the things that they want me to help do in the future and things like that. So I came to understand that PlanRVA holds a lot of data, regional data. As we have this awesome team working in transportation and environment and emergency management, they come across a lot of course, transportation data, but besides that, demographics, land use, housing, housing and occupancy, school data, school attendance, performance, market data, anything that is useful to the teams to try and estimate future growth, because we are a planning agency. We need to touch a lot of data sets to try and do those projections. So our team had already been working with data from the VDOT, from the census, from NOAA, the emergency management data, the environmental data, and DMV, and so on. So in the beginning, it was kind of an overwhelming for me to try and understand all those data structures, because as an academician or coming from an academic institution, I hadn't touched through all those practical data sets in the past. Of course, about 80% of them I knew, but then there were quite a few that needed some digging. So I went ahead and talked with our colleagues, and I tried to understand what, from a principal data manager's role, how can I help the internal team in whatever they do. And it was sort of a one-on-one interviews, but we came across a kind of a similar responses from everyone, where we acknowledge that we are sitting on top of a lot of data. We acknowledge that we have a lot of personnel capacity. We have state of the art. Let's not say state of the art. We have very highly skilled and qualified people in the team who work with this data on a daily basis. But the team also identified that we did lack on certain areas like automation. We are trying to build up data pipelines that can kind of refresh themselves as new data comes along every year, every 4 years, every 3 years. And we could do some, build some pipelines to power our dashboards automatically, so that we don't have to invest our time creating that dashboard again and again every year. Once the pipeline is built, it is there forever, unless the source data changes or anything in the source changes. So our teams came together and said, we need to build some automation within our work so that we are more efficient, and we can do more things than just reinventing the same wheel. There were also questions about data access from the public, how public can interact with our data, how quickly they can receive whatever they want. So it was identified that we would have to be investing our time in building publicly facing dashboards, publicly facing data portals, and also providing them with analytics, because if we just dump data on public, all they are going to see a bunch of numbers. Or it is only useful when data is interpreted by someone who has the ability to interpret, and that would be our team in PlanRVA. So there were also discussions internally that we need to be more out there with simplified extracts from the data, insights from the data, not dumping data set as is, but providing them with relevant information that can be extracted from the data. And that is, we identified that being our role in the region, because we are the data hub. We would be pulling in data together and then extracting insights, simplifying it, making it into stories, and serving it to the public who needs that information. And by public, it's a catch-all for, it could be localities, planning departments, localities, decision makers, policy makers, everybody, and also general public. So we identified a need for PlanRVA, since it's already sitting on data and we have the personnel capacity, that we need to push ourselves as a regional data hub and start churning out more analytics insights and serve those insights through our dashboards. And that's what we have started to work over the past 7-8 months. So before coming to PlanRVA, while I was working with VCU, I was also part of a team that had a similar vision to pull data together and serve it to the public. For some reason, that vision did not quite materialize through the university. When I came to PlanRVA, I was very glad to know that PlanRVA also has the same, not the same, exactly the same, but a similar vision like that. And I could bring my experience back from VCU and directly plug into the PlanRVA team to make that thing happen. So we envision a regional data system, an integrated data system that looks at demographic, socioeconomic, land use changes, land use data, market, housing market data, commercial market data, business location, employment data, by industry categories and so on, and also environmental equity data that is available there. So our dream, and it is not an unattainable dream, we have been working on it. Our dream is to pull all this together in one place and make sense of the data that we collect and provide it to the public through some form of easy to understand websites or dashboards. So that will include story maps, producing story maps, of course, gathering data first, and then producing story maps, interactive dashboards, and then deep dive in regional issues that are of concern. And since we have the data, we have the capacity to do some longitudinal analysis or cross-sectional analysis, pull one variable and the other and compare them and things like that. So we can help those custom deep diving, custom research, and that's where we want PlanRVA to be placed in terms of data steward of the region. And one branch of it that we have pursued recently is our regional indicators project, which is kind of based partly in how the Greater Washington Partnership has designed their indicators project. We are kind of mirroring to some extent that one, and also adding our own flavor to it. In general, it's a MSA level data. It's a data set that you can interact at MSA level, at county level, at council districts level, and all the way down to block groups level, and track changes over time, across all the variables that I just mentioned. And then also extract information and stories to tell, depending on what issue is important at that point in time. We have some glimpses from the 2020 comparison, 2020 census comparison 2010 that we have been working on in terms of population change, how population change disaggregated by race looks like between 10 and 20 censuses. Whereas how does occupancy by race looks like in terms of we have basically 4 major races listed there. What does home ownership or housing occupancy by race looks like compared to 2015? Where in this region, coming down to 2020, people have moved around or home ownership has changed by race? And those kind of we've just started to kind of scratch, also in terms of poverty rates and unemployment rates, and many more. So we have started to pull the data in, build all the pipelines necessary. We do not have all the visualizations ready yet, but it's in the pipeline. Our dream is to have a working dashboard for everyone to consume our data as soon as possible. And on the same line, since we are already sitting on data, we have also enhanced and kind of branched out into some form of policy evaluation, program evaluation, policy research in the region that we can provide, and also depending on when we are requested to do so. This is one project that I wanted to introduce today, and it's probably going to be a recurring kind of an evaluative work from our side, is to evaluate the impact of the Revive First Responders Training Program in the state. It is a statewide study, but there is a regional component as well, and we can pull the data of our region to the granularity that we want. What this, I'm sure you all are already familiar with the RVIVE program. It's run by the Virginia Chiefs of Police Association, and they train first responders to administer naloxone and also provide naloxone kits. They have been doing this, running this program since 2015, and they had a very strong recruitment between 2016 and 2019, and after the pandemic happened, they had to slow down a little bit. But they wanted to know how their program has been doing in terms of moving the needle or making a dent in preventing opioid-related deaths or opioid-related emergencies. And we've been tracking them over the last 3 years, and we found that there has been slight decline in opioid-related deaths that coincides with the program's performance period. We cannot causally say that the program caused it, but there is there are localities that we have identified where opioid-related deaths have been cut down substantially since this program started. Wherever and this program, they had, based on our recommendation, they have also been trying to target their training programs based on where the highest need is at this time, at that time when they get the data. So we keep on providing them the general picture of opioid-related deaths in the state, and where if they are focusing on the right place and the right time, or if they are putting too much resources where it is not needed, or maybe too few resources where it is needed the most. So we always provide this QQ chart or XY chart, a scatter plot, where we tell them, hey, these are the areas with the highest opioid deaths, and these are the areas with highest training density, and do they match or not? So as long as they match, that's good. If they are too way far out into the left or right, that tells the agency that they need to be focusing on those areas. And just for fun, I pulled out our region's data there, where you can see Richmond, city of Richmond had a very high spike between 2019 and 2022 of opioid-related deaths. Henrico had some, but then it went back down. All the other counties compared to Richmond show pretty flat line. In the same lines, we are also part of the 2022 market value analysis exercise that was conducted by the Reinvestment Fund, an agency out of Philadelphia. They came to Richmond once in 2017. They did their standard market value analysis. They came back again in 2022, and they ran the same analysis again. What they do is they have a standard method where they track various parameters such as sale prices, foreclosures, rental vacancy rate, housing vacancy rates, and densities, and all the other market related metrics, and they track it, they pull it together, and they basically do a cluster analysis to identify how the market is doing overall. And they categorize the entire data set, the entire region, into 8 markets, A through I, 8 or 9 markets. And so ABC is supposed to be a stronger market, housing market. D, E, F, G supposed to be mid markets. Depending on condition, G, H, I are supposed to be the weaker markets where there is more blight and there is less reconstruction, more more churning out of buildings, maybe going into investors, going up as investor purchases, and so on. What they have produced is a bunch of data sets, a bunch of maps that tells us where in the region, and this is not the entire PlanRVA region, it's the part of Chesterfield, part of Henrico, and all of Richmond, which is the economic region of this active economic region of within this PlanRVA footprint. And we have been provided where the markets are stronger, markets are weaker, markets are mediocre, where we are losing housing stock, where we are gaining new housing stock, where the prices are too high to be affordable. And also who is buying these properties? Are these properties being transacted within the population, or is there a bigger institutional investor is coming in and swooping in the properties? So in this regard, I'm only pulling in a few maps that I want to show here. Is they did a displacement risk ratio analysis, which is kind of a culmination of where you would look at how much money you make per year and what is the average house price, house value, and that home value in that region, and you make a division, a home value divided by income, and that is your ratio of risk. Is that it basically tells you that if the home value is too high and your income is too low, you are basically at the risk of being displaced from that area to some other areas. So the highlighted areas, the areas highlighted in green, dark green, are the areas with severe displacement risk in this region, and those are also the most of the areas where we see a lot of investor purchases, where buildings are houses are sold from an individual to an investor rather than from an individual to an individual. And the MVA also gives us a glimpse into affordability in the region. This the shaded area that's shown in this map is where a family earning 100% of median household income of the region, the area median household income, can afford to live. And there isn't many areas that they can afford to live now. Black families earning 100% median area median income, there is even a lesser area, even a smaller area that they can afford to live. It's mostly on the western, south side a little bit, not beyond that. And if we go all the way down to 80% AMI, it's even going to be there will be no area in the entire region that they can afford to live. So this is a big problem, which has been identified from a long time ago, almost at least 7 months that I've been here. I'm here in PlanRVA. I hear it on a daily basis. And we have plans to add to the MVA analysis, dig into those specific areas of housing shortages, supply problems, investor purchases, lending issues, access to capital, and other issues that can be related to housing affordability or housing attainability in the region. So we, as PlanRVA's team, we will be adding more details to this MVA in the coming days. We will be pulling in more data, digging a little deeper into each branch of this study, and picking up issues and providing story maps and insights from there. And also, we will be looking into the literature to see how others have handled these problems. Our intent is not only to identify problem and then just go from there, but to also work as a part of the solution. If there is a problem, let's try and identify what others have done successfully in other parts of the country, other regions, similar regions, that has or has not worked. So we will be pulling those literature as well. Oh yeah, this was the map I wanted to show, owner occupant to investor, where most of the transactions happen between owner to an investor. We have also created a website sorry, that can where people can go interact with this MVA data. There is a MVA hub within PlanRVA's website, and it can be accessed from the homepage. And all of the MVA data is there. You can anyone can go zoom into certain areas, have all the metrics lined up on the right-hand side panel. They change as you zoom or as you make the selections, and it's for and also you can download data from there. It's for a way for the public to try and understand what MVA is. There are various categories that we have created. That is part of the MVA, which is the market cluster, which is you're seeing the first page, and then there is the residential sales, types of sales, housing characteristics, demographic data, and so on. So we have provided all these maps and charts. I don't think the airport internet is very fast. But yeah, there is, the MVA has been served through a portal of PlanRVA Data Hub, so that public can experience what it is, they can learn more about it. And we will follow this through more story maps and insights in the days to come. I don't think I have, let me go back to my presentation if I can. There are, of course, there are more exciting things coming up that I cannot possibly cover within 20 minutes, but within the next 6 to 8 months, we probably will be known as the data hub in the region. So any questions, I'd be happy to answer.
Thank you, Doctor. Any questions, comments from?
Yes,
Yes, sir,
I would
Mr. Tom.
love to have a copy of the slide related to the opiate related deaths. If you would, Trent.
I can send you a report.
OAA, Abatement Authority, and we're meeting now discussing how we're going to disseminate money. And this may be helpful in us in our dissemination of money regionally.
Of course,
throughout
I
the
will.
state.
I'll be sending. I'll send you the slide and the report as well.
Yes, you will send that to me. I would appreciate it. I'll share it with the
You can
committee.
circulate it to
Opiate
everyone.
abatement.
I think it would be helpful.
You can circulate to everyone.
Okay.
Everyone.
Yeah, we can send it to everyone, or maybe I can just let
All of us.
share with Janice, and she can share it with everyone.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That'd be
We'll
great.
get that.
Thank you.
We'll get that out. to
Thank you.
folks. Yes, sir, Doctor.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Question around how are you defining investor?
That's a good question. We are not defining. It's the reinvestment fund that are defining investor, but we are happy with their definitions. Now, that is an institutional buyer, which could be BlackRock or a small LLC that someone has registered themselves as a LLC and buying the house, buying the buildings. All of them are grouped into institutional buyer. They are aware, we are aware that recently many individual buyers have also started registering LLCs and doing business through that. For some, of course, there is a good benefit to that, but that unfortunately gets counted as institutional buyer as well.
Thank you.
Think further. Yes, ma'am. Dr. Newbill.
How do we access this incredible opportunity? Do we just make a request?
For the slide deck,
Not just a slide deck.
the information.
For example, the naloxone study. You looked at first responders. But there are a lot of programs where individuals, I've been trained, so I have naloxone in my car. Others have been trained. What have been the results of those trainings in terms of impacting? I know you did mixed methods, I guess, with the, so I'm just trying, how do we
Yeah, so as a
access this
commission member, you're
incredible
gonna,
resource?
by any request.
Okay.
So
All
as
right,
a
I can
commission member,
hold.
you have access to the hub, and of course to Dr. Adhikari at any time that you desire. Although I don't control his schedule, he'll make himself available. How about that?
Of course, I am here to serve, and you can go to the hub. If you find information there, that's fine. If you don't find it there, contact me. For the naloxone study, it might not be in the hub yet because it is a project we conducted for the VACP, Virginia Chiefs of Police.
Okay, so that is why.
But I can ask for their permission to keep a copy in our website because they basically hired us to do that study. So it's not PlanRVA property yet, but we can make that request.
Just that particular instance, because we have invested so many organizations do training of individuals in community, just be good to see what the impact has been in terms of at all reducing numbers. So we
Yes.
know have to invest more in addition to first responders, investing more with various individuals, entities in communities. So
Yeah. Well, based on the report I did and based on the Richmond data I saw, I think Richmond is doing great, but you can always come up with more investment in the program. I mean, it's a very successful program. I can say that from the data.
Mr. Thornton.
Mr. Chairman, I want to thank you and staff for putting this presentation together because it brings to mind to me something that Dr. King talked about some time ago. He talked about the beloved community. And when you get data, the information we can use from this, we can really implement that. So I think that this is awesome for us to use. So I want to thank you for sharing that with us. And we need to really take this data and use it so that we can change and have better policies. So again, I want to thank you for this. This is awesome.
Well, thank you, Mr. Thornton. And to that end, as we're talking about that, and of course, we're talking about abatements and those money, we want PlanRVA to be that resource to the localities for that information. So as your localities are funding PlanRVA, it certainly needs to be a resource, and we have those capabilities, and we're expanding those capabilities as time moves on, and the hub's going to be important. Again, if it's not in the hub and it's something particular that you want, we can get that for you as a resource to you in setting good policy in your locality. So Dr. Adhikari, thank you for that.
Thank you.
We appreciate that. Is there anything further from commission members? Dr. Miller, we welcome you again. Glad to have you part of the team.
Thank you.
Anything further? Anything from Vice Chairman?
No, sir.
Legal counsel, executive director. Hearing none, on behalf of PlanRVA, we wish you a very Merry Christmas and a happy holiday season. We look forward to seeing everyone at the new year. Please send our best to your families, your friends, your loved ones, as well as your localities. The time is 10:29 and we are adjourned.
thank you.